experienced. For over 20 years, we have helped thousands throughout the Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island. We work 100% for the 99%. For a free consultation with an experienced attorney, call or text us at 212-766-1100. And yes, we speak Spanish.
Hello and welcome to M24 News. I am your host, Julio Rivera. Thank you for joining me today. So let's start off on a happy note. Today is the 95th, annual Feast of San Gennaro in Little Italy. It's always fun to say. The Feast of San Gennaro returns to Manhattan's Little Italy neighborhood this week after last year's event was canceled because of the coronavirus pandemic. Kicking off on Thursday, the 11th day celebration began in 1926 as a way for immigrants in New York City to maintain the Italian tradition of honoring the patron saint of Naples, whose name is Saint Januarius. I hope I'm saying that right, with a feast every September. While the makeup of Little Italy has evolved over the last century, shrinking in size from 30 blocks to about 9, the Feast of San Gennaro remains one of New York City's most popular events. Get a taste for all things Italian with one of the city's largest street fairs, from the history of the iconic event to cannoli eating contests and a religious procession. In the beginning, celebrations like the Feast of San Gennaro provided a sense of place and pride for many Italian immigrants in the United States. What began as a one-day religious event in 1926 has grown to an 11-day festival of food, carnival, games, music, and more, attracting both tourists and New Yorkers alike. At the same time, a similar festival begins in Little Italy in the Bronx. I know there is a Little Italy in the Bronx, so definitely want to check that out. Now on to Hispanic Heritage Month. Broadway icon Chita Rivera talks a legendary career. She's a theatrical icon and one of the most nominated performers in Tony history. But for Chita Rivera, being a role model for young Hispanic performers might be her biggest accolade. She said, quote, "I think it's vital that we know our heritage. We're proud of our heritage, but we are part of the world." Born Dolores Conchita Figueroa de Rivero, she remembered being in an audition early in her career that stopped her in her tracks. Her mother was an Irish and Scottish descent, and her father was Puerto Rican. She said she never felt different than any other performer as she embarked on her career as a performer, though she embraced her heritage. She eventually took her club act to Puerto Rico after entertaining as a young performer as a place to put her infectious energy. She later won a scholarship at the School of American Ballet and trained in New York City under legendary choreographer George Balanchine. In 1957, she was cast as Anita in the original Broadway production of West Side Story, which led her to stardom. She later went on to win 2 Tonys and was nominated for 8 more. On top of her Lifetime Achievement Award, she later devoted her life to humanitarian work and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. She went on to say, "When you have been lucky enough to do what you love and what you can do, you owe it to give it back." Now on to Congress. Congress pushes for a path to citizenship for documented dreamers. Senators introduced a bipartisan bill on Wednesday that would create a pathway to citizenship for some children and young adults who were raised in the United States but face deportation at age 21. The legislation, called the America's Children Act, was introduced after the House this weekend advanced the text of a sweeping $3.5 trillion spending plan that would also write into a law a pathway to citizenship for the same group known as documented dreamers. They are young people who lived in the country legally up until age 21 as the dependent of parents who hold non-immigrant visas, but many never qualified for permanent residency. And some that are eligible for green cards as children get stuck in vast green card backlog and are unable to gain residency before they turn 21 and are kicked out of line. The moves indicate broad bipartisan support in both chambers for documented dreamers following a year of long push for them to be included in an immigration overhaul. For too long, young immigrants like us, who have been raised and educated here as Americans, have been forced to leave the country we call home, said Dip Patel, the founder of Improve the Dream, an organization that advocates for documented dreamers. He went on to say, the introduction of America's Children Act means so much to thousands of us who have only known America as their home. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA as it's known, this program introduced by President Obama in 2012, which protects about 650,000 young immigrants from deportation, requires applicants to be undocumented, leaving out documented dreamers. Under the proposed legislation, at least 200,000 young adults who have lived in the United States for at least 10 years on a valid visa and have graduated from an institution of higher education would be eligible for permanent residence. Mr. Patel, a 25-year-old, a Canadian citizen, has lived in the United States for more than 16 years. His parents came to the United States on E-2 visas, a program which allows small business investors to reside in the United States, and opened a grocery store in southern Illinois. It was not until he was in high school that Mr. Patel realized that his dependent visa would expire when he turned 21, complicating his future. An E-2 visa is one that can be renewed endlessly, but does not offer a pathway to citizenship. He went on to say, it's such a little-known thing, said Patel. Most Americans don't even know it's possible for someone, an immigrant child, to be brought here under a legal status, but still not have a path to citizenship. On that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break. This is M24 News with Julio Rivera. We will be right back.
What does a Regis divorce, a Regis bankruptcy, and a Regis personal injury claim have in common? Regis lawyers. Lawyers who care, convenient, affordable, respectful, and experienced. For over 20 years, we have helped thousands throughout the Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island. We work 100% for the 99%. For a free consultation with an experienced attorney, call or text us at 212-766-1100. And yes, we speak Spanish.
Hello and welcome back. This is M24 News and I am your host, Julio Rivera. Continuing on our stories, tourism urged to slow down and pleads more cultural respect in Hawaii. Amid the calls from state officials for tourism to slow down in Hawaii, Hawaiian Airlines released a new video informing those traveling to the islands how they can respect the sacred land and culture and community when visiting. In the video, 5 crew members talk about the airline's goal to travel Pano, meaning to explore the Hawaiian Islands with care. The workers said visitors need to express their kokua, or your help, in protecting the sacred ecosystem from Aina, land, to Kai, the sea. The group also asks visitors to learn and understand Hawaiian culture while treating the natives with respect. The video, released on Monday, will air in the cabins of all Hawaiian-bound planes starting next week. According to the airline, Avi Manis, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Hawaiian Airlines, said in a statement the airline wanted to give tourists valuable information that betters their experience while protecting Hawaii. Over the last month, he said, we have heard from the community and employees calling for a video like this, and we listened to them, Manis said. The video comes as Hawaii has had an incredible surge of tourists, so much so that Governor David Ige said in August it's not a good time to travel to the islands. As the state dealt with rising COVID-19 cases, the high amount of tourists has resulted in tension among natives who say visitors who have been disrespectful and have expressed anger towards them. There have also been instances of visitors disrespecting the island. Hawaii now reports numerous historical landmarks have been flooded with tourists. Now on to our next story about the vaccines, Moderna vaccines. Moderna analysis, those vaccinated last year twice are likely to get COVID-19 faster than those recently vaccinated. Moderna Inc. has released a set of data which suggested its COVID-19 vaccination is effective in preventing serious health issues or death from, quote, variants of concern, but admitting that efficiency decreases over time, such that those who received the vaccine last year were twice more likely to contract a breakthrough case of the coronavirus disease. According to the data, which Moderna released Wednesday, a, quote, study shows a lower risk of breakthrough infection in participants vaccinated more recently, with the median being 8 months after the first dose, than participants vaccinated last year, with that median being 13 months after the first dose. A Moderna trial conducted over the summer, labeled Phase 3 COVE study, revealed that, quote, 88 breakthrough cases of COVID-19 occurred in more recently vaccinated groups, with 49 cases per 1,000 per year, compared to the 162 cases group vaccinated last year, that being 77.1 cases per 1,000 persons per year. Across both groups, Moderna highlighted that, quote, only 19 severe cases were observed, while there was a, quote, numerical trend towards a lower rate of severe cases in the group's vaccination more recently. Moderna insisted that the number of cases was low enough that the trend was, quote, not significant. The research found that those who were vaccinated earlier on had a 50% higher rate of symptomatic breakthrough cases during the months of July and August compared to those who had received the vaccination later. In a statement issued along the data, Moderna CEO Stephanie Bancel insisted that the data, quote, supports the need for a booster shot. It is promised to see clinical and real-world evidence adding to the growing body of data on the effectiveness of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. Bancel went on to say said of the unpublished analysis, the increased risk of breakthrough infections in COVE study participants who were vaccinated last year compared to more recently illustrates the impact of waning immunity and supports the need for a booster to maintain high levels of protection. Moderna has also requested authorization from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, a third dose booster shot, which will one half of the dose in its existing vaccine. Now on to the Olympics. The Olympics and sexual abuse investigation is still underway. Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles told Congress in forceful testimony Wednesday that federal law enforcement and gymnastics officials turned a, quote, blind eye to U.S. gymnastics team Dr. Larry Nassar sexual abuse on her and hundreds of other women. Biles told the Senate Judiciary Committee that, quote, enough is enough, as she and 3 other U.S. gymnasts spoke in stark emotion terms about the lasting toll Nassar's crimes have taken on their lives. In response, FBI Director Christopher Wray said he was, quote, deeply and profoundly sorry for delays in Nassar's prosecution and the pain it caused. The 4-time Olympic gold medalist and 5-time world champion, widely considered to be the greatest gymnast of all time, said she, quote, can imagine no place that I would be no less comfortable right now than sitting here in front of you. She declared herself a survivor of sexual abuse. She also said, I blame Larry Nassar and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. Biles said through tears. In addition to failures of the FBI, she said USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, quote, knew that I was abused by their official team doctor long before I was ever made aware of their knowledge. Biles said a message needs to be sent. If you allow a predator to harm children, the consequences will be swift and severe. Enough is enough. Biles also acknowledged in January 2018 that she was among the hundreds of athletes who were abused by Nassar. She is the only one of the witnesses who competed in 2020's Tokyo Olympics, held this year, after a 1-year delay due to the coronavirus pandemic, where she removed herself from the team finals to focus on her mental health. She returned to earn a bronze medal on beam, but told the committee that lingering trauma from her abuse at the hands of Nassar played a factor in her decision to opt out of several competitions. At the hearing, she also said she wanted her presence in Tokyo to, quote, to maintain a connection between the failures of officials and the Olympic competition, but that it proved to be an exceptionally difficult burden for her to carry. Larry Nassar pleaded guilty in 2017 to federal child pornography offenses and sexual offense charges in Michigan. He is now serving decades in prison after hundreds of girls and women said he sexually abused them under the guise of medical treatment when he worked for Michigan State and Indiana-based USA Gymnastics, which trains Olympians. Litigation over the abuse may soon be coming to an end after USA Gymnastics and hundreds of Nassar's victims filed a joint $425 million settlement proposed in U.S. bankruptcy court in Indianapolis last month. We are going to take a quick commercial break on that note. I am Julio Rivera, and this is M24 News. Thank you for joining me.
What does a Regis divorce? What does a Regis divorce, a Regis bankruptcy, and a Regis personal injury claim have in common? Regis lawyers. Lawyers who care, convenient, affordable, respectful, and experienced. For over 20 years, we have helped thousands throughout the Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island. We work 100% for the 99%. For a free consultation with an experienced attorney, call or text us at 212-766-1100. And yes, we speak Spanish.
Hello and welcome back. I am Julio Rivera and this is M24 News. Continuing our story, El Salvador becomes first nation to make Bitcoin legal tender amid growing authoritarianism. Thousands in El Salvador took to the streets Wednesday to protest President Nayib Bukele's growing consolidation of power and a new law making El Salvador the world's first country to recognize the highly volatile cryptocurrency, it's a bit of a tongue twister, Bitcoin, as legal tender. Protests in El Salvador are also criticizing a recent court ruling that paves the way for President Bukele to run for re-election in 2024. El Salvador's return to Bitcoin comes as a surprise to many, but has been pushed by the president as a way to lessen remittance fees, says Jorge Culciar, an assistant professor of Latin American and Latino Caribbean Studies at Dartmouth College. He goes on to say, there's no reason why Bitcoin should be at the top of the government agenda in the moment of a pandemic of water stress and food security. People are very suspicious of this. Continuing on, Putin in self-isolation due to COVID cases in the inner circle. Russian President Vladimir Putin entered a self-isolation after people in his inner circle became infected with the coronavirus, Kremlin said, a cabinet member of his, adding that the leader himself tested negative for COVID-19. Putin, who is fully vaccinated with Russia's Sputnik 5, held several public engagements indoors Monday and said he may have to quarantine soon. An aide at the time sought to suggest he was speaking generally and insisted Tuesday that no one's health was endangered. During a daily conference call with reporters, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Putin, who is 68, is, quote, absolutely healthy, but had come in contact with someone who contracted the virus. Asked if Putin tested negative for the virus, Peskov said, definitely yes. Peskov didn't say when Putin began self-isolation when he tested negative, how long he would remain in self-isolation, or among the president's contacts was infected, who was infected, during a video conference with government officials and members of the ruling United Russia Party. Putin said that several people in his immediate circle were infected with the virus, including a staff member who was in close contact throughout Monday. That staffer was vaccinated, recently got revaccinated, Putin said, and apparently referred to a third shot that Russia was offering people who were immunized more than 6 months ago, saying, quote, 3 days after revaccination, he felt ill. We will see how Sputnik 5 really works. Even the most highly effective coronavirus vaccines in use don't prevent all infections, but they reduce the risk of getting seriously sick or dying from COVID-19. Russian authorities have been regularly criticized for underplaying the pandemic, for rarely imposing measures to control even the face of the infection surges. Putin has hardly even wore a mask publicly, though he appeared to work largely remotely and was rarely seen in public for a period before he was vaccinated. Putin has occasionally gone to extreme lengths to protect himself. As we saw, he was in a full hazmat suit to protect himself from infection, despite the lack of restrictions in general. Peskov has confirmed to media reports that people who meet in person with Putin or attend events with him have to undergo rigorous testing or quarantine ahead of time. Our final story today, Wendy Williams. I know I've definitely watched her show. Wendy Williams tests positive for COVID-19. Production on Wendy Williams' huge daytime talk show has been postponed as she recovers from a breakthrough case of COVID-19. An announcement posted Wednesday on her show's verified Instagram account reads, "While continuing her health evaluations, Wendy has tested positive for a breakthrough case of COVID-19." The statement read, "To allow Wendy time to quarantine and fully recover and to ensure that our production fully abides by SAG, AFTRA, and DJA COVID protocols, we expect to begin the 13th season of the Wendy Williams Show on Monday, October 4th. But in the meantime, repeats will be scheduled. A case described as a breakthrough is when a person is fully vaccinated, but still gets infected with COVID-19. In a statement posted last week on the show's account, it had been announced that Williams was canceling her promotional activities as she was dealing with some ongoing health issues and undergoing further evaluations. Last year, she took a break while dealing with Graves' disease. That is all of our stories. Before we end, we always have to give a shout out. This is Millennium TV. You can download the app and watch all of our programs. And it is also available on Apple TV, Jago, Jadu, Roku, Sky Cable, Amazon Fire TV, Radiant IPTV, Verizon Fios, World Cable, Cinefun TV, Star, Cable TV, BTV, TWC TV, Star Cable, My Cable, Horizon Satellite. It is also available on all Androids and smart TVs and iOS. Again, I am Julio Rivera, and this is M24 News. Thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody have a lovely rest of your day. Woo!